Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whenever or wherever you're watching or listening to us. This is the Awesemo Nhl Dfs Strategy Show, and I am your host, Michael Clifford, aka Slim Cliffy. Joining me on this Kessel run, hopefully in 12 parsecs or less, is our resident single entry smuggler, Mr. Joshua Harris. Josh, how you doing today, bud?
I can confirm that the Kessel Run has nothing to do with Phil Kessel because they do not measure it in hot dogs. They measure it in parsecs.
maybe parsecs is like the length of travel to the nearest hot dog vendor on a street corner somewhere. No, we're not talking about hot dogs. We might talk about Phil Kessel. He is on the slate later today. Not on a slate that we're going to talk about, but we are here to talk about some hockey. We have a 6-game slate coming up this Saturday evening. And we have a showdown slate coming up here shortly between Pittsburgh and Buffalo. We're going to touch on that briefly. Before we do, let's talk about last night a little bit. Kind of a weird night last night. Like you didn't need a high score to really cash. Like I cashed with 90 points, which is very weird in GPPs. It was one of those slates where there just wasn't a lot of scoring and you really needed to hit the right players. Like that's kind of the case on any short slate. You really need to hit the right players, but there's really there was 12 goals scored in the 3 games or something like that. So, and one goalie had a shutout. So there wasn't really a whole lot going on. Our boy Chandler Stevenson really pulled through big time. Swayman in net for Boston looks good. I don't want to say it, but is there a goalie controversy in Boston right now?
I mean, there's always a goalie controversy in Boston, right? When Halak was there, people were like, "Oh, Halak, oh, Rask." Swayman looks good, so he might be their goalie of the future. I don't know how long Rask is signed for, but maybe he will, be there. We'll see what happens in the playoffs. They play hot goalies, so if he has a good game in the playoff series, they may ride him. If they make the playoffs, hopefully they crash and the Rangers make it. But
yeah, see, I'm with you. I really want to see the Rangers get in. Like, we'll see what happens after today's game, but they're almost certainly going to have the highest goal differential in their division, and they're out 4 points out of a playoff spot. Kind of a tough situation for them. Games running out after today. Only a dozen games left for the Rangers. Taylor Hall. Couple goals in 2 games with in his last 2 games with Boston. He's not playing a ton, and I think that's kind of a bit of a concern here. 15 minutes, 13 minutes, almost 17 minutes. So he's averaging 15 minutes a game in 3 games with Boston, but he's also averaging 3 shots per game. I hate to say it, but like between him and Mike Riley, this Boston team, it's only been a few games, but a couple of them are against the Islanders, and I think the Islanders are legit cup contenders. So that Boston team has looked really, really good since acquiring Hall and Riley.
Yeah, and I guess, they've looked good against the Islanders, but the Islanders have looked really bad recently. I don't know if their feng shui is off after acquiring Palmieri and Zajac. They need to find their zen again, but if Boston's going to play well, it's bad news for the Rangers.
Yeah, that was the one thing that the Rangers were hanging their hat on, was Boston's play was slipping in the month of March. They're only going to be 4 points back. It's doable, but it's kind of a long shot at this point. I'm still pulling for the Rangers. They're a fun team to watch. I would like to see them get in. Before we keep going, if you're not able to watch your favorite Awesemo shows on YouTube, almost all of our Awesemo YouTube shows are available through the Awesemo Podcast Network. We have a podcast for every sport, and we're available on every major platform. So head on over to awesemo.com/podcast to check out the latest. Just leave a 5-star review on one of our podcasts with your Twitter handle or email address, and you'll be eligible to win a free week of Awesemo Plus Platinum. One winner will be awarded every Friday, and reviews will be eligible to win for up to 1 year. So you can win later this summer for some baseball, maybe in the fall for some football, maybe next winter for hockey. You're eligible to win up until next April. So just head on over to awesemo.com/podcast to check out what we have going on for Awesemo Podcasts. And while you guys are here, if you want to do us a big favor, throw us a like and subscribe. The subscription especially really helps us grow this channel, keeps these shows coming on a near daily basis. I mean, we've got a ton of shows coming up. We've already had an MLB show today. We've got more MLB, NBA, MMA later today. So if you want to keep these shows coming on a regular basis, just throw us a subscription. Click that bell if you want to get notified whenever we come on the air. All right. Want to talk about one game real quick here. It's Pittsburgh with a 3.8 implied goal total going into Buffalo. The Sabres have a 2.3 implied goal total. This game starts in about 55 minutes. So if you're listening on podcast, unfortunately, you're not going to be able to get in for this contest, but it is a showdown slate. And as Jake was saying on the show, I think it was yesterday, showdown slates become more and more important. I mean, especially where games, like we're getting the season extended, right? The season's going to be extended by 11 days or something like that. And there's only going to be 1, 2, or 3 games on all those days for makeup days because they're all makeup games. So there's going to be a lot of showdown slates. We talked about how rescheduled games are going to be coming up at like 5 or 6 p.m. on weekdays. We've seen that happen already, and we're going to see it after the season. We're going to see it in playoffs as well. So like Jake said, if you want to keep playing NHL regularly, you have to get used to showdown. So let's talk about this a little bit. Pittsburgh 3.8 going to Buffalo. Buffalo has a 2.3 implied goal total. As I mentioned, Kyle Okposo, they said had cheek surgery, broken bone in his cheek, and he's going to be out for the rest of the year. Now that changes things in this game a little bit because Riley Shea and Kyle Okposo had kind of been turned into the shutdown line for Buffalo. I imagine they still stick with Sheehan as a shutdown guy to go up against Pitt 1, but really there just isn't a lot for shutdown material on the Buffalo side. One thing I did notice was that Reinhart and Olofsson are on PP1, have been playing about 18 minutes plus per game since the deadline. So seems like they're getting a healthy amount of minutes, but this is a pretty bad matchup. What do you think here, Josh?
Yeah, in this showdown slate, this is, I think, the most common build is going to be some Pittsburgh onslaught lineups here. I think, you throw in that top line, it's an elite play. You want to throw in McCann. I think that is perfectly fine too, since it's on power play 1. He's been very good. You want to play some Carter, you want to play some Zucker, perfectly fine. I think, if you're building onslaughts, you're going to need like a cheap guy in the Sabres as your one-off. I think Casey Middlestad makes some sense. Maybe Dylan Cousins makes some sense. Anders Bjork makes some sense. I mean, there's not really much on the Sabres I want to use. Like maybe if you want to throw in Dustin Tokarski and hope that if it is him actually, and you hope he gets the shot bonus, I guess that's fine. But if you want to put in like a Skinner, you want to put in a Middlestad, Tage Thompson, Victor Olofsson, like I don't think I would really stack anything outside of like putting Reinhart and Olofsson together. So like I think Pitt 1 makes some sense, Letang makes some sense. If you need like a cheap defenseman on the Penguins to fit some guys in, I think Matheson makes some sense. Even Cody Ceci, like if you want to save some salary, makes some sense. But really, you're going to be trying to put in most of the Pitt top power plays you can. So maybe you're going to want to captain a cheap guy to save some salary. But really, maybe to get different, you don't put interest in Yari just because of the shot volume concern. And maybe if he gives up like a goal on 20 shots, he's not going to be in the optimal lineup. And you can get in like an extra skater on the power play, like a McCann or something like that. But I think for the most part, the most common builds are going to be some Penguins onslaught. Yeah,
and that's what makes me think, like, if you want to go Penguins onslaught, I'm obviously not going to say no. It's a 3.8 implied goal total up against a 2.3. But one thing we talk about when talking about showdowns is that you should probably build your lineups according to a game script, right? And if you think that Pittsburgh's just going to blow the doors off here and win like 5 or 6-0, then yeah, go ahead and stack the balls out of Pittsburgh. But if you want to do something a little bit different, like I think like double goalie with a couple defensemen makes sense, because then if you're down here at a 2-1 game, maybe you can bank the goal scorer even if it's against your goalie, get an assist, get some shot blocks. Like I think an afternoon game in Buffalo on a weekend just kind of screams low scoring to me. I know like it's just kind of conjecture, but I think that's one avenue I think you can really get ahead here. Is there's, like you said, there's going to be so many Pittsburgh onslaught stacks that there's not going to be a lot of Buffalo. And I think any Buffalo that there is, people are going to be mixing the scorers. So you're going to see like Olofsson, Reinhart, and Gensel and Crosby or something like that in a lineup. I don't think you're going to see a lot of like double goalie, double defenseman with a couple forwards or something like that. So I think I would bank on like Tokarski's actually looked decent. Like, we talk about goalies coming out of nowhere or whatever. He's put up a 908 save percentage for the Sabres since he came up, 908 in 7 games. That's about league average, and like about league average on the Buffalo Sabres is really good. So I will take I have no problem going like Tokarski and Ristolainen and Jari and Letang, and then filling out maybe with a couple of cheaper forwards or something like that. So that's probably the route I would take in this game. Probably not a whole lot more that we have to talk about here for the showdown slate. Anything else you want to touch on?
Yeah, I guess either of the Rasmai makes sense too if you're going to throw in the Buffalo G-men. Jake's boy Matt Irwin's probably really cheap. If it helps you get in, especially if even if you think like Pittsburgh's going to win like 4-2, 5-2, something like that, it does make some sense to get in some Buffalo defenders, especially the ones that block some shots. So maybe you can dink like a block shot bonus in the captain slot with a really cheap defender, which frees up some salary to get in some more big boys.
Yep, I completely agree with that. All right. We got to move it along here, but before we do, let's talk about our brand new show sponsor, and our show sponsor is JockMKT. JockMKT has turned fantasy sports into a stock exchange. It allows you to buy and sell shares of players in real time for real money with guaranteed payouts for all shares at the end of each night. With daily markets for NBA, NHL, and PGA, you can make real money every hour, every minute, every second of any match or game. Use the pregame IPO to pick up shares of your favorite players, then buy, sell, or hold them during the game based on your own analysis. Download the app to get started and use our exclusive Awesemo promo code Awesemo NHL20 for a $20 bonus on your first deposit. This is an exclusive offer only for the Awesemo community, so make sure to take advantage of it today. That's Awesemo NHL20 for a $20 bonus on your first deposit at our show sponsor, JockMKT. All right, we've got 6 games to get to for the slate here tonight. We've got about 40 minutes to get through them, so let's get to this. The Nashville Predators have a 2.3 implied goal total. They're going into Carolina. I said Nashville Predators. I thought I said Nashville Hurricanes. Man, my mind today. Nashville, 2.3 implied goal total going into Carolina. Carolina is a 3.2 implied goal total. The big news from this game is Matt Duchene is going to be back in the lineup for the Preds, but the Preds didn't have a morning skate. So we don't really know what the lines are going to be. I'll say what I'm thinking is going to happen is that Matt Duchene goes to the second line center. Michael Granlund moves back to the wing. And then somebody moves down a spot, somebody like Luke Cunnin. I think there's, especially with Duchene back, it takes some focus off of the Johansson line. So I think there might be stuff to like on both sides here. So what do you like, Josh?
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what the lines are. It is an early start, so that's good news. I would imagine it's going to be like Ryan Johansson, Victor Arvidsson, and then Mikael Granlund, and then you're going to have like Duchene, Yarncroc, and Grimaldi, and then I think Luke Cunnin goes down to the third line with Haula and Cousins, but we'll see. It's tough to really know what Scott Hines is going to do. Or Scott Hines?
John Hines.
John Hines. I don't know why I keep calling him Scott. Maybe I just don't like Scott. I don't know. But anyway, I would imagine the Jordan Stahl line is going to get the Johansson Arvidsson line regardless of who's on the wing with them. And, in the last game, Niederreiter is there, and Stahl's defensive numbers are at his best when Niederreiter's there. So, it is a low total for the Preds. The Stahl, Jordan Stahl hasn't been super great defensively with Nino Niederreiter there. He has been better. So it's going to kind of take me off that top line there. If, Duchene does slot back in the second center for the Preds, they're probably going to get, the Aho Svechnikov matchup the Trocheck matchup, which, normally if it was Niederreiter, Trocheck, Netchus, I'd be off them, but with Martinook there, maybe they could be had a little bit. So maybe if you want to get, the thing is like it's Saturday, there's UFC, there's baseball. So like not many people are going to be, really checking their lineup. So if it is like a new Nashville too, just from an ownership play, you might get that full line at like 1%. I'm not saying it's like a good match. It's not a great matchup and the total super low, but it is going to be a unique line. So maybe you can, sneak that in an MME and have like a really, really low filler line there. So I guess like pay attention to warmups, but other than that, I'm kind of going to be off the Preds tonight. I do like that top line for the Carolina, Aho, Svechnikov, Fost. Ownership agrees with me. They're our first run. They're around 15-16%. But they're going to get depth of the Predators. So I think you can go there. The second line is okay, but with Martinook there instead of Niederreiter, not really interested. And then the Stahl Niederreiter Fogle line does interest me some. They're cheap. They're going to get, they're probably going to be locked on, at least for the most part, at least 67% of the time to Nashville 1. So their minutes are going to be there. So I don't mind them at all as a filler line tonight. And then really the lines from this game for me would be Carolina 1, Carolina 3, and then just from an ownership, like a really low ownership play, new Predators 2.
Yeah, it's the Predators 2 that's really drawing my interest here. Like you're right, I don't want the Nashville top line going into that Stahl Niederreiter matchup. I think that's just a really bad matchup, especially where Carolina's penalty kill has been fairly good of late, right? I believe they've been top 10 over the last 3 weeks. So like that's not a penalty kill like you really want to take advantage of. So like that Nashville top line just really isn't super appealing for me. I think I'm with you. I like something like a Yarncroc Duchesne Granlund line does have interest to me going up against Trocheck and Natchez. Like Trocheck and Natchez, like it's a good line, but it's not a super elite line, right? It's not a line that like I would run from a matchup. Like I think the Stahl Niederreiter line actually makes for a worse matchup. So don't mind Trocheck or don't mind the Duchesne line, as a secondary filler line. I'm just worried that we see some ownership on them because Matt Duchene's price on DraftKings is $2,700. So, like, if you put in Granlund and Duchesne and Yardcroc, I think it comes in around 10K, like, for the entire line. So, like, I worry about ownership because they could come in fairly high owned. But here's the problem. If it's Duchesne and Granlund on the second line, here's the problem with using that line. Is that you only really need to use them with Edmonton 1 tonight, right? There aren't a ton of super expensive lines. And Edmonton 1 is double center on DraftKings. Draisaitl and McDavid are both centers. And for Nashville, both Duchesne and Granlund are centers. So if you want to go Edmonton 1, Nashville 2, you have to leave one of the centers off. You have no choice. So that's kind of one of the things that's keeping me away from Nashville 2 is like, I don't need the savings, right? There's nowhere else that I'm playing lineups where I need them except for Edmonton 1, and I can't even play the two lines together. So, like, I think I'm out on Nashville entirely tonight, which kind of feels bad because I think they've been playing well. They've been turning it around. I just don't think I think Nashville 1's in a bad matchup, and I don't see the need to play Nashville 2. Now, if you want a one-off Duchesne or one-off Granlund or something like that, I think that makes a lot of sense. I just can't see stacking the whole line. You just don't need to. So that's kind of where I'm at here. I think I'm going to be in on I'm going to be with you, Sebastian Aho and Svechnikov. They're going to get the third and fourth lines from Nashville. And I don't know if you guys saw the Nashville defense pairings today, but Ben Harper and Eric Goodbranson, two guys that weren't good enough for Ottawa, are now on the third pairing for Nashville. So if Aho and Svechnikov get the depth matchups, if they can get the depth pairings as well, I think they could have a good night here. So I don't even mind full stacking the three of them because Nashville's penalty kill has been coming around itself as well. So I think Jesper Foss would have more interest for me in this matchup than they would in a premium power play matchup. On the blue line, my boy Hakanpää, I don't think he's playing enough minutes. He was only at like 15 minutes in the last game, so I think we can take him out. But Ryan Ellis, man, he's under 4K. How do you not play him today? I don't know, in almost any format.
Yeah, and Matthias Ekholm's under 4,000 too. I think you can play both of them, play one of them. Your boy Hakanpää has like Jake Harry level hair. Like his hair is like elite. Like that, he's just got elite hair. But I agree, his minutes are a concern. I think I would rather play Yossi than Dougie in this game as well. Take the 900 savings and look elsewhere. But on the Nashville side, Ellis definitely makes some sense. Ekholm makes some sense. Yossi. On the Carolina side, I'd probably use Slavin or Brady Shea or Brett Pesce.
Yeah, I do like I have Brett Pesce written down just because I think 3,700 in general is just too cheap for him. But then when you see Ryan Ellis at 3,900, it's like it's the exact same problem. I think Ryan Ellis should be even more expensive than Brett Pesce. So like both of those guys here tonight. In net, I imagine we're off the Carolina goalies, seeing as they're all 8,100 on DK. Saros though 7,100. That's got to be appealing.
Yeah, I do like Saros tonight. I always like UC Saros, especially at his price. And I think Nedeljkovic is confirmed at 8,100. I think he makes some sense in Carolina lineups just because, like, I think that Nashville total is a little low. They've been playing much better of late, so the shot volume may be there. Nedeljkovic, I don't know if I'd want off him, but I think I would definitely include him in some Carolina stacks.
Yeah, I should say that. Like, I should say we're not playing Carolina goalies, but it's Carolina goalies in non-Carolina lineups.
Yeah.
Should clarify that a little bit. All right, let's get to our next game. I think there's going to be a ton of interest on both sides in this one. Florida with a 2.7 implied goal total. Going into Tampa Bay, the Bolts have a 3.3 implied goal total. Our ownership run came up about 20 minutes before the show came on the air. And woo, buddy, that Tampa Bay one ownership is sky high. Braden Point, Andre Palat, Alex Barré-Boulet, we have them at a 24% ownership share on a 6-game slate. I can't even argue with it because they're only 13-4. And I don't know if you guys saw practice yesterday, but Barré-Boulet moved up to the top power play unit. So the top line is now fully correlated on the power play. So that's why that ownership makes sense to me, is because I think you can actually stick in Tampa 1 with Edmonton 1 here tonight on DraftKings fairly comfortably. So there's a reason why Tampa 1's ownership is just super sky high, but there is other stuff we have to talk about in this game as well. So you take this game wherever you want to go.
Yeah. So Barré-Boulet, he's a cash lock. If you're a cash player, 2,600 top power play, top line, like you just lock them in your lineup and look for other more expensive spots. I'll start with Florida first. So Nikita Gusev is on the top power play unit now with Barkov and Marchment on the top line. I really want to use them. I wish it wasn't Marchment. I wish it was someone else, but I still have to save this for another time. They're going to get the Gord, Coleman, Gaudreau matchup. That's a tough matchup for any line. I would maybe put them into MME consideration if it was someone like Vetrano or Duclair or Hornquist or Huberdeau on the top line instead of Marchment. But with Marchment there, it's just tough to really put that full line in there. If you want to do some kind of power play stack, I think you can do that. Where I'm really looking, I think if you want to use that second line, Huberdeau, Sam Bennett, Duclair, I don't know. I think if I was going to use line in the Panthers, it would be that third line, Vetrano, Wenberg, Hornquist. I know Jake heard that and just locked in 65% Florida 3 because his boy Wenberg is there, but they're going to avoid the Gord, Coleman, Gaudreau matchup. They're going to get either the Point Palat, Boulet or Killorn, Cirelli, Colton. And, Tampa Bay is a good team, and they're probably favored to, be in the Stanley Cup. In the East, especially, because Stamkos went on the IR and, magically Kucherov is back skating. So, that team's just going to be a very tough out in the playoffs, but they're not in there today. So I think, that they can be had a little bit defensively there. Vetrano, Wenberg, Hornquist, they're not overly expensive. They're around $13K as a full line. They're going to get a decent matchup. They're going to be pretty low owned because they're a quote unquote third line. So I think you can go to Florida 3. And then on the Tampa Bay side, that top line makes complete sense. I understand the ownership. They're so cheap. They are fully correlated on the power play. They're on a very good team. They're going to avoid the Barkov matchup. So, I mean, what can you say? I think if you're just, going straight Edmonton 1, Tampa Bay 1, I think you got to be a little bit creative with your defensemen and your goalies. But it makes, it makes sense why their ownership is there. So I think you can use them for sure. I don't really like the second line, Killorn, Cirelli, Colton. I guess it's okay. Killorn's on power play 1 at 3,800. If you want to put him in, that's fine. Ross Colton actually has been playing very well, but no power play. I guess if you think, if Bob's in, like he's not great. Like I think he can go to Tampa too, but yeah, really this game's like Tampa 1 for me, and maybe a little bit of the Florida lines and MME.
Yeah, Ross Colton with eight goals in 17 games this year. Just unbelievable. Now we should know he's shooting 33%. So that's not going to keep going. But he's scoring, so you can't complain about the production. As far as Tampa 1 goes, you and I talk about, or you've brought it up numerous times, that one way to get different seems to be stacking all three players from a super expensive line, like a Boston 1, making sure you don't leave anybody off. I think something like this, if you want to play Tampa 1, maybe it would make sense to leave someone off here, because people are just going to play the three of them because they're so cheap, right? They're not going to leave off Alex Barré-Boulet at his price on the top power play unit. Like, they're just not going to do it. So I think a way to get different, if you're really worried about ownership here, is leaving one of those guys off. Leave off Palat and hope he only puts up like an assist and a shot or something like that. Leave off Braden Point and hope that the wingers only get in. Like, I think that's one way to do it to get different. Obviously, if all three smash, you're pretty boned, but I think that's one way to get your Tampa 1 ownership without getting a ton of the same lineups that you'll see from other people in your contests.
You could also put in Killorn over one of them to get a unique.
Yeah, or just flat out power play stack, right? It's only a 6-game slate, so I have no problem power play stacking if you want to do that. That's definitely another option as well. I am going to get some of that Florida top line here tonight. I'm sorry. I know you're not going to do it. I have to. I'm a Gusev guy. I've been high on him since last year. I've been beside myself all year that New Jersey won't play him. Like, I don't want to appeal to authority here because I absolutely hate doing that in the NHL, but come on, this guy can't play for New Jersey, but immediately goes to the top line in Florida, a playoff team.
Yeah.
No, there's something that went wrong with New Jersey, and there's something that's beyond his control. This is a good player. This is a good hockey player. And like Gusev at his price, top line, top power play minutes. Yeah, I agree with you. I wish it was anybody but Mason Marchment on the top line. But honestly, for me, that just makes it easier to leave him off. And then you can kind of Jill stack your Panthers a little bit and go Barkov, Gusev, Huberdeau, Yandel, especially where Yandel's only like 33 or 3,400. Like, with Florida being as cheap as it is, you can put in like Barkov, Gusev, Yandel, Edmonton 1. Like, you know what I mean? So like, I have a ton of interest in the Florida top line here tonight. You're right. Going into Tampa 3 isn't a great matchup, but it's Tampa's power penalty kill that's really drawing me to Florida 1 here. Tampa top 10 by shorthanded time on ice over the last 3 weeks. They've been taking a ton of penalties, and their penalty kill has fallen off by expected goals against to the middle of the league. So, like, I have no problem with either top line in this game. That's where my focus is in this game, is on both top lines. But I think I would prefer Florida top line, 1 for ownership, and 2 just because I'm a Gusev homer. Like, I'll just flat out admit it. That's just the kind of guy I am. I have his projections still rated very highly, even after being bought out by New Jersey. On the blue line, I think Yandel is an automatic if you're playing Florida power play or any sort of Florida stack. Tampa Bay, they said they're going to be pairing up David Savard with Ryan McDonough, and then Eric Chernak with Victor Hedman. So Chernak on the top pair, Savard on the second pair. Looks like Sergachev going back down to the third pair. And Sergachev had been playing a ton of minutes lately. I should say he played a ton of minutes through the month of March. Down to under 19 minutes in the last game. That's a bit of a concern. What do you like for defensemen here?
Yeah, I mean, if you're going Tampa power play, I think Hedman makes some sense, especially with how cheap Tampa 1 is. I think you can put in Hedman. Chernak is great, 3,500. He's a nice one-off. I think also Ryan McDonough at 3,600 is a nice one-off. So is Savard. But I think I'd go Chernak, McDonough, Savard in that order. Sergachev's price and minutes are a concern, so I'm probably going to be off there. On the Florida side, yeah, Yandel, if you're playing any type of power play, makes some sense. I think Gustav Forsling at his price still makes sense. You want to one-off Mackenzie Weegar, I think that's fine. He's kind of in no man's land, so he's going to be super low owned. I want to see how Brandon Montour his minutes before I start playing him. And, if you want to punt Radko Gudas, I think that's fine as well.
Punt Radko Gudas? You just made a bunch of fans saying that, I think.
I've always been a Radko Gudas guy. I know Drewby's the president of the Radko Gudas punt club, but 2,900, like, I know he scored his first goal of the season, probably his first goal since like 2008, but like he does block a lot of shots, so 2,900 for shot blocking is fine.
Yep, I completely agree with you. Looking in net, no, like I'm not playing Bobrovsky, and like I guess Vasilevsky's 7,800. Like that's good for Vasilevsky. Normally he's like an 8,500 goalie at home, but I guess like this might be a situation to play him because Tampa is going through injuries. What do you think?
I mean, Vasilevsky is always a cash goalie consideration just because Tampa Bay is so good and they win the majority of their games. So I think you put him in cash and it's fine. GPPs, I worry about his ceiling. But the one thing is, at 7,800 with Florida's shot propensity, I think you can put him in with Tampa lineups and hope, Florida has one of their traditional 35 to 40 shot games.
Yep, I agree with you there. All right, we're going to move it along. Before we do, if you want to get access to all the great Awesemo Plus tools and content for nearly every DFS sport out there with an Awesemo Plus weekly pass, you can do so for $29.95. This includes full access to all the premium content and tools on Awesemo.com, including player projections, ownership projections, premium Slack channel, which is something our NHL users tell us they're big fans of, especially for getting that late news in. There's also a lineup builder and a whole lot more. We also have a special MMA deal running for UFC 261, Usman versus Masvidal next weekend. Get 50% off your first month of Awesemo Plus MMA when you use the promo code UFC 261. That's $14.98 for 30 days. Of Awesemo Plus MMA, which includes our fighter projections, ownership projections, and our top fighters tool. And that top fighters tool compares projected ownership with the chances of any fighter being one of the top fighters. This offer is valid through Saturday, April 24th. Stop guessing, start winning. Join Awesemo Plus today at Awesemo.com with our promo code UFC 261. All right, here we go. Chicago 3.0 implied goal total. Going into Detroit, the Red Wings have a 2.6 implied goal total. Malcolm Subban confirmed for Chicago. I think it's going to be Jonathan Bernier because it was Greiss last game, if I'm not mistaken, for the Red Wings. So it's probably going to be Bernier here tonight. This is a very interesting game because I think with Evgeny Svechnikov out for Detroit again, like I haven't seen anything concrete, but I assume they go 11-7. They did last game 11 forwards, 7 defensemen. That makes Detroit really hard to stack. Now they have been leaving pairings of players together. You can probably bank on like Larkin and Zadina staying together, for example, but it does make them hard to stack. Jacob Vrana, power play 2, baby. Absolutely no correlation whatsoever with Dylan Larkin. Even with Detroit going 11-7, I think there's probably something on both sides here. So what do you have in this game, Josh?
Yeah, so, Patrick Kane on the top line with Suter and Hagel, I think that's a fine line. With the Detroit going 11-7, there's not going to be any concrete matchups. I think you can use that line. Patty Kane always going to be the highest owned player on the Blackhawks. He's probably going to play on every single line tonight, just what he does. But the line I'm looking at for the Hawks is the second line, DeBrincat, Doc, Strome, fully correlated power play 1. Doc and Strome together are only 7,000, so that line is 14-5. They're going to get whoever on the Red Wings. I would imagine they're going to avoid, Larkin for the most part. I don't know what Blashill does with the.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter.
Like it honestly doesn't matter. They can put out 5 defensemen against Patty Kane and it won't matter. So, that second line fully correlated on the power play. I really like that line. The Blackhawks are doing that 5 forwards on the top power play. So if you want to mix and match that's fine. Kubalik one off, always in play at his price, 4,700. He has he's a fan favorite of ours. But really for the Hawks side, it's that second line. On the wing side, I mean, if you want to, one-off Dylan Larkin, that's probably your safest bet for the wings because, his price, 5,100 top power play, he's going to see minutes, and that's fine. If you want to use Jacob Vrana, because he scored classic Jacob Vrana goal, like take a penalty, come out of the box, get a breakaway, and score. That is Jacob Vrana in a nutshell. But at his price, I think you can one off him as well. If you want to do a 2-man Larkin Zadina, it's super cheap. I think you can do that. But that's really about it on the wing side.
Yeah, I'm having a tough time with Chicago here because Chicago changed their lines last game too, right?
Yeah.
And for that reason, there's only like a couple pairings you can rely on. You can rely probably on DeBrincat and Doc staying together. You can probably rely on Kurashev and Kubalik staying together. Everybody else has been mixed around, and that's a problem for me stacking Chicago. Is like their big guns are probably going to end up getting the most minutes, but it's just a matter of whether they get the minutes together, right? And that's kind of the big problem with stacking Chicago here tonight. We just don't know whether they're going to be playing together. And the Detroit penalty kill has actually been pretty good of late. Top 10 by expected goals against over the last month, and only allowing about 4 minutes and 10 seconds of 4-on-5 penalty kill time per game. That's just, a little over 2 penalties. I think I'm pretty much out on Chicago here tonight. And I feel bad saying that because like this is a good matchup and the ownership isn't out of line, at least not yet. Nothing that we have. We have the top line, which we have with Kane and Hagel. I'm not sure if that's going to stick together because Hagel was, up and down all game. But we have them at about 9%. We have the Doc and DeBrincat pairing at 9.5%. Like the ownership's fine here. There's nothing really to be worried about. It's just we don't really know exactly what the lines are going to be. Detroit's penalty kill has been good. They're not taking a lot of penalties. Jonathan Bernier has been a very good goalie this year. Like he's like with him in net, they might not even be a lottery. Maybe they're still a lottery team. But yeah, maybe they're still a lottery team. But they'd certainly be a lot better. And like, especially with the prices for Chicago, like they're not super expensive. Like, we're not talking McDavid, Draisaitl, but they're not cheap either. Just Kane DeBrincat's going to cost you almost $16K on DraftKings.
It's not like it's a 4 total. It's a 3 total. It's not a huge total.
Right, exactly. Like I think there's enough here that if you're playing 1, 2, 3 lineups, I don't think you should feel pressure into having to play Chicago at all. Detroit, I agree with you. It's just about one-offs for me. Like I might one-off Larkin. I might even one-off like Zadina or something like that, just a cheap punt. But honestly, just in total, just not a lot I really like from this game. And I imagine it's not on the blue line. It's not a whole lot different either, especially with Chicago going to a 5-man top power play unit. Like Dennis Chalowski, I guess, if you want a super punt for PP2 Detroit minutes. But other than that, I don't see anything. What do you have?
Yeah, going 11-7. Like we're not on, the Red Wings defenseman anyway. You add another one into the mix, and it's just a mess. So I'm probably out on the Red Wings, and even on the Blackhawks side, there's not much to like either. Like Duncan Keith was under 4,000. The last game he's up to 4,400. He's kind of in no man's land. If you want to go back there, I guess that's fine. But other than that, I'm probably off them completely.
Yeah, I agree with you completely as well. I'm assuming there's no chance you're playing an 8K Malcolm Subban, so I'm not even going to ask you. Are you playing a 7,200 Jonathan Bernier?
I would consider it. I wish he was a little bit cheaper. Like the Detroit goalies have been 6,700 to 7,000. 7,200, I guess, is okay. I'd have to consider. I consider it. I throw him into my mix. I think there's other goalies that I would prioritize, though.
All right, fair enough. We'll keep him in the back pocket for now then. All right, getting to the main event of the evening, what I think should be the main event anyways. We have Edmonton with a 2.9 implied goal total going into Winnipeg. The Jets have a 3.1 implied goal total. The note here is Edmonton's been off for a week. They haven't played since last Saturday. Now, I brought it up before on this podcast that too much rest is usually bad for a team coming right out of the gate. But there's been a couple times this year where a team has come off a long pause. I'm thinking Dallas earlier this year. And then I think it was the Rangers maybe about a month ago or something. Maybe I'm thinking of a different team. But there's been 2 teams to come off a long pause and just absolutely blow the doors off the opponent. Like, because they look super rested, they look fresh, et cetera, et cetera. Now, I don't know if that's going to be the case here with Edmonton tonight. Not that we necessarily need any extra incentive to play Edmonton here tonight. If you look at their ownership coming in over 20%, the top line as a trio. So they're going to be popular regardless. What are your thoughts on what Edmonton could look like here tonight after a week off? And then what do you have in this game?
Is Nugent Hopkins going to be back, or is he still out?
No, he's still out.
Okay. So it's really just that top line. After that, it just, there's no need really to dip down to Alex Jason tonight if you're power play stacking. I guess you could. Man, these like second and third lines are just bad for the Oilers. So I think there's some stuff to like on the Jets. Now, we were talking before the show that the Jets haven't played the Oilers at home since January. But in that last time they played, they almost sent out the third line exclusively against the McDavid line. Now, if that's the case, it's going to be really, really hard to fade the Edmonton top line because that Winnipeg third line is not good, and they will just get run over. Now, that's a double-edged sword, too, because that frees up the Winnipeg top six to go against this absolutely terrible, Oilers depth. So as much, if that's the case, like I love Edmonton 1, but I also would love, Winnipeg top line, the Winnipeg second line, some Winnipeg power play stacks. The thing with the Jets and the Oilers, their top lines are 2C, 1 wing. So like if you're looking to do that Nashville too, like you just can't do it. Like you're going to have to look elsewhere. I think, what we talked about earlier, if you want to do these 2C, 1 wing things, is get 3 of the Tampa wingers. Like you leave off a point and you put in Killorn and you get a little bit different with Tampa there. I think that's a decent way to get a little bit unique. But yeah, so Edmonton top line, like it doesn't bother me that they've been off a week. They needed the rest. They may have needed the rest. Like they weren't playing great beforehand. They might have been a little bit tired. They had some nagging injuries. Weeks off for like younger teams may suck, but someone like McDavid, Draisaitl, who have like maybe have little dinged injuries here, it will help them. And especially if they're going to get that third line, obviously Edmonton 1 would be one of my favorite plays tonight. They come with a lot of ownership. They can fit with the other chalky line in Tampa, so you're going to have to get a little creative. But, Winnipeg 1 going up against Edmonton 2 or Edmonton 3, like that is a great, great matchup. And it is Mike Smith. So I think you can go to Winnipeg 1. You can go to Winnipeg 2. They're both going to get great, great matchups if they put the Winnipeg third line against McDavid.
Yeah, I can't. For me, like just processing it in my brain, I cannot fathom sending out Mason Appleton for 20 minutes against Connor McDavid. I just cannot. Like it's not processing in my brain. But like you said, it's happened already this year. So like, and it's something they've done against other teams recently. So there's no reason to think it won't happen again here tonight. So like, yeah, I guess I'm going to have to play Edmonton, man. Like, there's just no way around it. And like we talked about their ownership coming in at 20%. Yeah, that's high. Our top 2 stack percentage for that line is over 30%. So it's actually a good leverage spot. And with Kyler Yamamoto and Alex Chason on the top power play unit, there are, stacks you can make to get different. You can throw in Yamamoto. You can throw in Chason. You can throw in both of them. You full 5-man the power play from Edmonton. You can do that if you want as well. I've just like, man, just seeing the way some teams have come off their rest at times this year. Winnipeg's playing 3-4 and 4-6, and they're going to send out their third line against Connor McDavid. Everything is telling me to play Edmonton 1 here tonight. There's just no way around it. I'm sorry. When I look at our projections, like Connor McDavid, obviously number 1, Leon Draisaitl, number 3 amongst our skaters. Like you have 2 of the top 3 skaters on the same line. Ownership definitely in check. Ways to get different. I just think there's no way for me to get off Edmonton 1 here tonight. So I will be on Edmonton 1 here tonight. But I agree with you. Winnipeg 1, Winnipeg 2, both solidly in play here for me. as well. I would probably lean Winnipeg too. I think they've been playing a little bit better as the line. Nikolai Ehlers looks like a double dong threat every time he's on the ice.
They are.
So I'm just really all about Winnipeg too. On the blue line, I kind of like Neil Pionk. Like he's been playing very, very well of late, especially just kind of as like you can one off him too, right? Like he's only 4,200, not on the top power play, so I feel fine one offing him. Besides like Tyson Barrie and Nurse, is there any defenseman here that you like in particular?
It's funny with Pionk, you get away from when Lindy Ruff was on the Rangers, you get away from him and his, he got better. Shocker. But, Neil Pionk definitely is in play as a one-off. I will say Winnipeg 2 is 3 wing, so you're going to have to use a 2 center line with them. And if you want a game stack with Winnipeg 1, I guess that makes some sense. I try to stay away from game stacking for the most part, but it is on a slate where it's 6 games and you can maybe get away with it. But yeah, Neil Pionk for sure. If you want to use Morrissey for the power play, that's fine. I'd rather use Pionk. And then on the Oilers side, Barrie makes sense in the power play stacks. Nurse makes some sense. If you want to get a little bit different, he's $800 more. He's probably going to get half the ownership. If you want to use Adam Larson or Cowboy Chris Russell for some block shots, that's fine. But other than that, I'm off.
Yeah, I agree with you in net. Connor Hellebuck, I know we don't like to play against Connor McDavid. Seems kind of hard not to at 7,700. Do you have any interest?
Yeah. If I'm making lineups that don't have Edmonton, I want to use Hellebuck. That price is in check at home. He's probably going to have low ownership. He has the potential to have a huge game. And it's, he's not like 8,300 where it just feels bad putting him in.
Okay, perfect. I like it. Just want to remind everybody about that UFC card coming up next weekend, Usman versus Masvidal, April 24th. And I want to remind you, we have that awesome Awesemo MMA monthly pass promo going on right now. You can get 50% off your first month of Awesemo plus MMA when you use the promo code UFC261. That's $14.95 for 30 days of Awesemo plus MMA. You get full access to fighter projections, ownership projections, top fighter tool, lineup builder, and the premium Slack channel. A whole bunch of good stuff for only $14.95 for a 1 month Awesemo plus MMA pass. So head on over to Awesemo.com, put it in the promo code UFC261 and get your first month of Awesemo plus MMA for $14.95. This offer is valid through to next Saturday. And we have free stuff up on the site. We usually do free content on the site today, both NHL and NBA player projections, our MLB top pitchers for tonight, as well as MMA top fighters. So whether it's NHL, NBA, MLB, or MMA, we have some stuff up on the site to help you guys out for tonight. All right, we've got 7 minutes left. We've got a couple games to get through, loads of time to get through them, especially this next one. Columbus, 2.2 implied goal total going into Dallas. The Stars have a 3.1 implied goal total. Looks like it's going to be Joonas Korpisalo against Jake Ottinger. Man, I just don't like Columbus in this matchup. I don't know if you see anything different, but there's still not a lot from the Columbus side I like here. What do you like?
I'm off the Blue Jackets tonight. And the good thing about this late game is there is another late game. So if you want to play Dallas 1 and you're worried about Rope Hintz, if he's out, you can go to the Wild or you can go to the Sharks. So that eases your concern a little bit. I would imagine the Fasco, Cogliano, Como line is going to get the Roslovic, Bjorkstrand, Atkinson line, which frees up the Hintz, Pavelski, Robertson line to go against the Line A line, which is what we want to do because Line A is one of those guys that you talk about all the time that really just tanks lines defensively. And we don't even need any more motivation to play Dallas 1, but this is very good. This is one of the best matchups you can have. I think Dallas 1 is one of my favorite spots on the night. Their ownership is in check. They're around 10%. I love it. If you want to go to the second line, you want to do a 2-man of Ben and Gurionov. I think that's fine. Gurionov had a really good game last time out. He's still only 4,000. Really, like, I'm completely off the Blue Jackets outside of maybe like a one-off Seth Jones, or if you need like a cheap punt, I guess you can like put in like Alexandre Texier on the top power play 2,500. But really, like I have a very hard time putting in the Blue Jackets. This game is really Dallas 1 and Dallas power play for me.
Yeah, I'm really glad you mentioned Dallas 1. Man, I love that spot here tonight. Like you mentioned, going up against the line A line. And I want to just to break it down quickly, just to we're not talking out of our butts here about how bad that line is. The Domi line A Bjorkstrand line, 1.6 expected goals for, 3.1 expected goals against, 34.2 expected goals share. Now, sometimes expected goals don't always translate to actual goals, but in this case, they definitely do. 2.4 expected goals for per 60 minutes, 5.3 goals against per 60. That's a 31% goal share. This line is getting choked out. And the thing with Columbus, why we sometimes avoided picking against them at times this year, is because they weren't taking a lot of penalties. Over the last 3 weeks, they have the 7th most penalty kill time on ice of any team in the league. So they're starting to take a lot more penalties. So I have no problem going to Dallas too, because they are a lot cheaper and they can fit in with a more expensive Edmonton 1 stack or something like that. But I love that Dallas 1 line here tonight. So I completely agree with you. Give me Hintz, give me Pavelski, give me all those guys. I think on the blue line, between Klingberg and Heiskanen, I think I would probably prefer to one-off Heiskanen. If I was stacking Dallas, I'd probably prefer Klingberg because he seems more like the playmaker to me. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. Especially if you want a power play stack, put them in both of them in. I think that's fine. It's a good way to get unique because most people, when stacking power plays, they don't like to use 2 defensemen. So I think you can put both of them in. And you got a unique build. But I agree. If you're doing Dallas 1, I think Klingberg makes sense. If you're off Dallas, if you're not using Dallas 1 and you need a one-off, I think Heiskanen makes some sense. Excuse me. Contractual obligation, Jamie Alexiak. And then on the Blue Jacket side, outside of Seth Jones, it is a barren wasteland.
Yeah, I agree with. I will say Michael Del Zotto, 22 minutes, 25 minutes, 23 minutes his last 3 games. If you need a super 3K punt that's getting minutes, I don't mind Del Zotto, but that's the only guy I will talk about here. All right, let's get to our last game. It's a redux from last night. San Jose, 2.4 implied goal total going into Minnesota. The Wild have a 3.2 implied goal total. They already said Kaapo Kähkönen is going to be starting for Minnesota, so that's definitely a downgrade in net. I'm just going to ask you what you like here because I have my own thoughts, but I want to get yours first.
Yeah, so that Sharks top line going against the Joel Eriksson Ek line got absolutely just destroyed yesterday. So I'm going to be off them. If you want to go to the Sharks second line, I wish it was anyone but Patty Marleau on there. I think it's going to keep me off the Sharks almost completely. If you want to one-off Hurdle, you want to one-off Meyer, you want to do a 2-man Hurdle, Balceras, I think that's fine. But other than that, I'm kind of off the Sharks. I like that. I like the Minnesota top line, Kaprizov, Rass, Zuccarello, especially, they don't really – we were talking about the line matching before the game. They don't really – after the Joel Eriksson Ek and the Hartman line, they just kind of just roll with whatever. So they'll get all kinds of depth matchups, which is fine, especially if, it could be Marty Jones on a back-to-back. It could be Joseph Coronar. So I think, that is a plus matchup for the Wild. And then, there is, some stuff to like in the bottom 6 of the Wild, especially Bonino, Nick Bonino. He is on the top power play. Shout out Saul. He has 2,800 on the top power play, so I think you can go there as well. But yeah, so I like that Minnesota top line. But other than that, this game is kind of a redux of last night, so it's MME stuff for me.
I can't believe you actually did it. Yeah, I'm out on San Jose. Like you mentioned, that top line is just in a brutal matchup. And Timo Meier, when he's been on the ice without Thomas Hertl this year, under a 40% expected goal share. And then Patrick Marleau is just going to sink Hertl's line. So I think all 3 San Jose lines are out of play for me. I'm not even stacking for Minnesota. Kaprizov and Zuccarello were broke up on the power play, if I'm not mistaken. And that I never stacked the Eriksson Ek line. So I guess Hartman, Fiala, Johansson, if you want to stack them, but they haven't been super great. I love Fiala as a one-off here tonight. He's definitely one of my favorite players on the whole slate. I'm just not stacking. On the blue line, I'm out on San Jose, so nobody there for me. I do like Ryan Spurgeon here tonight. What do you think?
Yeah, Spurgeon and Dumba stick out. Those would be the guys I go to if you want to use Suter or Brodin because you really like them. That's fine, but I prefer Spurgeon and Dumba.
Yep. No goalies here either. We're not playing San Jose and we're not playing Kakkonen.
I tend to agree. No, I tend to agree.
Okay.
I'm just saying, like, if you want to get a little feisty with Coronar because it is a back-to-back and he's under 7K.
Yeah, okay.
You can, take a shot of your favorite liqueur and put him into your lineup. But
I would try to find the $300 for Saros is what I would try to do.
I agree.
Okay. All right. We're going to get out of here. Josh, I'm going to ask you for your hat trick pick. My hat trick pick for tonight, I've talked about him already. I'm sorry. I'm not going to say he's going to do it. I really hope he does it. Nikita Gusev. Who do you have?
I'm going to go Jason Robertson.
Jason Robertson. All right. Robertson and Gusev are your hat trick picks. Good luck tonight, everybody. We are off tomorrow, but we will be back on Monday. I think it's going to be Jake and Terry. But enjoy your weekend. Stay safe, and we will see you guys next week.